I know there's a few of our delegates who are still making their way in. We'll allow them some time to take their seats, but if I can just have your attention for a few housekeeping announcements, that'd be much appreciated. Firstly, for our agenda over the 2 days, kindly refer to the GPF app. If you've not been able to download the app, kindly refer to the back of your ID cards for guidance and instructions. Our translation devices, you can get a device from the team at the desk upon entry, and I'm sure you've seen them at the hallway. And all you need to do is get your ID card scanned. And we request that you return the devices once you've finished. And if you're unable to, please don't worry. We've got our volunteers here dressed in yellow with yellow t-shirts. You can just hand that over to them and they'll return it for you. Also, ladies and gentlemen, for Wi-Fi access, for those of you who just joined us here in Sochi today, well, you can get instructions also from the back of your ID cards. And while you're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, we ask that please, for those who have participated in any of the sessions over the last 2 days and yet to complete the evaluation on the app, we invite you to do that. We really would like to hear some feedback from you on what we're doing right and also what we can improve on. So please, as soon as you get a chance to do that, please do so. That goes also for our proceedings today with regards to the plenary sessions. Also, ladies and gentlemen, for our program this morning, we will have our distinguished guests join us very shortly. They'll be seated here in the front, facing the stage. We'll have a few welcoming remarks made before I invite them to take their seats on stage. We have a traditional Russian welcome ceremony, the salt and bread ceremony. I will tell us a little bit more about that later on. And once that's completed, ladies and gentlemen, we'll proceed with our formalities, our speeches by our guests on stage. Following that, at the end of all the formalities, ladies and gentlemen, we will go out for the group photo session. And for the photo session, we invite the honorable ministers, the honorable governors and deputy governors, the chairmen and also the superintendents to join us at the thank you wall for the group session. So we'll have one photo session up here for only our guests on stage, and then we'll invite you all to join them at the thank you wall. Ladies and gentlemen, please, at this point, we kindly request you switch your mobile devices to silent or vibrate mode. We'll give you a minute to do that. Please, if you can do that now. And for those of you, once again, if you're already seated but you feel you need to get the translation devices, we have a team right by the corridor to assist you. Just scan your ID card and you can return that at the end of the day or hand that over to any of our volunteers with the yellow t-shirts on. Once again, we thank you sincerely for your attention. Please let all your friends or colleagues know back home that we're live right now on through live stream, that they can join us to watch the official opening ceremony of the 2018 AFI Global Policy Forum. Thank you so much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. When we return, we'll commence with the opening ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly request that you take your seats. I've been advised that our official party are making their way now to the main hall for the commencement of the opening ceremony. Once again, we ask that you please switch your mobile devices to silent or vibrate mode. Ladies and gentlemen, our official party are now here to take their seats, and we will begin with our official program very shortly. Our esteemed guests, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we're celebrating our 10th annual Global Policy Forum today. Our journey began in Kenya in 2009. We were in Indonesia in 2010, in 2011, in Mexico, South Africa in 2012, Malaysia in 2013, Trinidad and Tobago 2014, Mozambique 2015. We were hosted in Fiji in 2016, in Egypt in 2017, and now here in the beautiful, sunny Sochi, Russia. The first GPF to be held in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our hosts a round of applause. Before we begin with the opening ceremony, please allow me briefly to speak on the 10th GPF logo. The 10th GPF logo represents the rich ornament of the kokoshnik, a headpiece worn by women in Russia. The delicately woven details and often precious stones and gems, represented as different circles, symbolize the member institutions of AFI. Kokoshnik, as the logo of the forum, embodies the traditions and cultural heritage of the host country, Russia. At the same time, as an element of the clothing worn by all women throughout Russia's history, the kokoshnik represents the access to financial services and increased financial literacy. The 10th anniversary of AFI and 10th GPF is symbolized by 10 double orange circles at the head of the logo. To begin with our formalities, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, can you please stand to welcome our guests, and I kindly request the AFI chairman to escort them up on stage. Please be upstanding. I invite the chairman and all our guests on stage to please make their way. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Distinguished guests, honorable ministers, honorable governors and deputy governors, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we begin our opening ceremony with a traditional Russian ceremonial welcome. When important, respected, or admired guests arrive, they are welcomed with a loaf of bread placed on a tray as a sign of hospitality. The bread and salt is a form of specially baked round bread with a salt shaker placed on top of the bread. Usually, the bread and salt on the round tray is covered with an embroidered towel and is presented by a young woman dressed in the national costume. If you're presented with the bread and salt, you should help yourself for sure. You need to break off a piece of bread and you dip it in salt and eat it with a smile. You should not refuse, or the host would be greatly offended, ladies and gentlemen. Bread in many cultures is a very revered product. Bread in Russia symbolizes abundance and wealth. Since ancient times, salt has been valued a lot in Russia, and people believed that salt offered protection. Even today, a good host in Russia is a person who treats his guests very well and follows the bread and salt tradition. I now invite the ladies to come forward for this ceremonial presentation, and I invite the Honorable First Deputy Governor, the AFI Board Chairman, and also the AFI Executive Director to please stand for this ceremonial presentation.
Благодарю вас. Благодарю.
The Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Deputy Speaker, esteemed members of government, Your Excellencies, Honorable Governors, senior officials of government, respected board members, distinguished delegates, Dobro Udra, and a very warm welcome. This is the 2018 AFI Global Policy Forum, and to deliver the first of our welcome remarks, I invite, ladies and gentlemen, the first Deputy Governor, Bank of Russia. Please welcome Olga Skarbgotova.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a great morning. We're meeting here at the southern capital of Russia, the city of Sochi. This is beautiful weather, sun, sea, and I think that we'll have a great 2 days work today and tomorrow, because we have a very dense, interesting program today. And me and my colleagues present here are glad to welcome you at the 10th anniversary Global Policy Forum of the Alliance for Financial Inclusion. We're greeting the regulators, members of AFI, private sector actors who work with AFI, the members of academia, and of course we're grateful to our colleagues from the AFI Secretariat, Mr. Hennig and his deputies, who have organized this amazing forum, who organized it in Russia, and a lot of people have come here, and this shows that this topic is increasingly important worldwide. The AFI over the 10 years have gone a great way, and yesterday we mentioned that we started with 10 participants, but now we've reached the number of 90 participants, which includes not only regulators but also major international organizations. And the AFI itself has become an organization that works with major institutions such as the UN, BRICS, and other international institutions, and they create mechanisms and instruments for promoting financial inclusion worldwide, not only domestically. It's interesting that, well, just yesterday I was returning to certain literature on the topic of financial inclusion, and it's reminded me of something. Now, in the 15th century, Leonardo da Vinci, a great artist, made an interesting drawing, a man in circle, the Vitruvian man. It's been 5 centuries since then, and we've come to the same understanding we should have had all the way, that the man should be in the center of our circles, and it's important what we can give to our fellow human beings, to give them harmony in their lives, despite all the difficulties, all the challenges we face. And I believe that the Alliance for Financial Inclusion does exactly that. We think of how we make it possible for people anywhere in the world feel protected, feel secure, and have access to all possible financial products and services that that are available today. It is important that one of the topics of the forum will be the topics of financial innovation. It's true that over the last 5 years, globally, there has been an explosive growth of technology. Some technologies have firmly established themselves, like mobile payments or peer-to-peer lending. Some technologies are still in their infant years, like distributed ledger, automation. But all of these technologies should eventually make it easier for people to live in the modern world, and to make it possible for people to address all of their financial issues easily and at minimal cost. And since there are many other issues that we want people to address, and they need finance for this, innovation, in my opinion, should not only bring us new products, new services for our citizens, they should also serve as an instrument for reducing the costs, because it's very important that in all countries the people have access to financial services that are affordable without too high costs. And I do hope that our alliance and the program that we'll be discussing over the next 2 days will have a great positive effect on such direction in such areas in financial technology, such as improving the quality of financial services and establishing more effective instruments for consumer protection. It is also very important that we promote the development of competition, because recently there have been quite many developments, including those thanks to financial technology, but there has been certain monopolization in the financial sphere, which is a worrying trend, because sooner or later a monopoly over a market always leads to fewer opportunities for acquiring certain products, to overpricing. And we should also discuss how we can possibly mitigate the risks of monopoly over certain products or services, how we should create an environment conducive for greater competition in the financial market. And our key goal should be to increase the share of the population that has access to financial services, even in remote areas, even in the areas where sometimes it's hard to create real banking infrastructure. But maybe we don't need physical infrastructure, because we do have internet, we have mobile technologies, we have smartphones, which allows us to provide almost the full spectrum of banking services remotely without any banking offices. And increasing the share of the population which has access to the banking services in each country, this should be our key goal. We'll discuss this over the forum, and we will discuss all possible measures that would allow us to do exactly that. And if we look at this in terms of priorities, which technologies are the most important for financial inclusion? We've mentioned it yesterday, and we've discussed it today in the morning with our colleagues, and we have established 3 key priority areas. I believe that the discussion in the next 2 days will probably either confirm our conclusions or maybe will expand the list of priorities. But we believe that the 3 key areas today are quite clearly the new technological trends that affect financial inclusion. They are the following. First, it's mobile payments and everything that has to do with providing services via smartphones. Of course, for this, there should be a very high-quality internet coverage in each country. Well, it varies from country to country, but we see that many countries invest in their infrastructure, they invest into the internet infrastructure and make it possible to develop various businesses that provide investment services. First of all, this affects the financial services, because lending institutions and businesses that provide financial services, they start developing very fast. They provide new services, new products. Because to make it possible for their mobile clients to have access to a wide spectrum of services. The second technology is the various identification technologies, including biometrics. In many smartphones, many identification issues have been addressed. Many countries create their own national solutions to this, and many countries outsource this to commercial institutions to introduce biometrics following national standards. And this certainly makes it possible to conduct any transactions, any identification operations, and then to provide services like in single file and at a very rapid pace. I would also like to mention AI, artificial intelligence, and all the opportunities that the technology provides for working with big data that is compiled for the financial service clients and helps provide the optimal set of services that the client really needs. We're also interested in the open banking technology that uses API, and many countries are at various stages of developing these technologies for their financial markets. But it is true that this area is very promising, and we believe it will be developed even further in future. It's true. Credit institutions using open APIs will find it hard to compete in the countries where the regulators have made it possible to use open APIs, but we should put our consumers into focus, and we should always keep it in mind that if we change our regulations this way, and if we make it possible for non-financial institutions to provide their financial services in a protected framework with implemented cyber resilience elements for the good of the citizen, probably that's the solutions we should opt for, that we should take everything into account. But this is already here, this exists, and we do understand that this is where we're going to head next. When talking about financial inclusion, it's a very wide topic. It's a very broad area. There are many issues to it, many events, many measures that we should take, and the financial technology is a part of a bigger picture of improving financial inclusion. But technology is not possible without certain legal regulation, without an infrastructure that would make it possible nationally and internationally to use these new tools. And when it comes to legal regulations, the regulators are to be very proactive, or maybe just active, because quite many innovations, many technological solutions are impossible to implement unless you have the necessary legal frameworks nationally that would create the rules of the game. And here the regulators and the governments that tackle the issue of financial inclusion and who want to reach something in this area, they have to watch really closely to make sure that the legal regulation is in line with the technological progress in the country. And in Russia, we have implemented the program Digital Economy, and today one of my colleagues will talk about this in very deep detail, because I think it's a very unique situation when we nationally have created a very systematic program which includes many areas like legal framework, from legal framework to very practical measures to expand financial infrastructure and cyber resilience. And I believe that combining all of these areas, all of these work streams in one program enables us to move forward in a very systematic way and to reach our goals in developing financial technology and promoting financial inclusion. Under this program, in Russia we have literally last year we launched a remote identification system. I've already mentioned that it's one of the most promising areas globally, and we've looked at the global trends, and we've seen the opportunities this technology provides, and we've come to the conclusion that we would follow the path of creating a national infrastructure for biometric identification, which would make it possible for consumers, if at least once you have been identified in a banking office, from then on it would be possible for a citizen to get banking services in any credit institution, and later even in non-credit institutions, remotely. We should reduce the costs for consumers. We should, when it comes to acquiring various financial, non-financial services anywhere in Russia. And next year we are planning to launch a fast payment system, and many countries I know have already launched such programs successfully. Some of them have already implemented fast payment systems, and we see very clear effects that are just skyrocketing cashless payments, and it's very convenient for the clients, because using this system you abandon some physical instruments and you can just use your smartphones. You can transfer money from account to account between individuals or to some business, to some merchant.
У нас есть еще несколько направлений, которые связаны с платформами по распределенным реестрам. Сложная технология, перспективная, но уже понятно, что далеко не все и везде она заменит. Она может использоваться больше там, где нужно создание системы доверия и хранение информации в открытом пространстве. При этом нужно решить вопросы кибербезопасности, вопросы устойчивости таких платформ на распределенных реестрах. И многие страны также вкладываются в эти системы, но я думаю, реально мы с вами только через 2-3 года будем обсуждать конкретную реализацию проектов с использованием распределенных реестров. Все эти меры, коллеги, направлены прежде всего для того, чтобы мы могли создать как на уровне страны пространство доверия финансового, так в дальнейшем и возможность трансграничного взаимодействия, потому что еще хорошее в инновациях и в технологиях, они, в принципе, все работают без границ. И если мы с вами вырабатываем в рамках Альянса определенные стандарты и правила, и ими пользуемся, их внедряем, нам это дает возможность в дальнейшем достаточно просто взаимодействовать на уровне технических решений, поскольку мы будем обладать теми изначальными одинаковыми стандартами, которые мы согласовываем как раз в рамках Альянса. Как я уже сказала, AFI прошел большой путь за 10 лет, но, честно говоря, я считаю, что следующие 10 лет будут еще более амбициозными, интересными и с большим количеством задач, даже чем то, что мы с вами прошли в предыдущий период. И де-факто финдоступность выходит тем единственным ключевым KPI для реализации огромного количества программ. То есть никто не думал, что в конечном итоге мы с вами огромное количество мероприятий, которые делаются и в других программах, не только в рамках Альянса, начнем мерить через наше влияние и наш результат на обеспечение равных условий везде, в части финансовых услуг, и на повышение финансовой доступности везде. Я хочу нам пожелать огромного успеха, я хочу нам пожелать плодотворной работы, я хочу нам пожелать отличных результатов. Я очень надеюсь, что эти 2 дня для вас будут качественными, интересными и очень эффективными. Спасибо вам большое.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, another round of applause for the first Bank of Russia. Spasiba, Madam. Ladies and gentlemen, our second welcome remarks. I welcome now the Deputy Governor of the Krasnodar Region Administration. Please warmly welcome Mr. Igor Galis.
Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the governor of the Krasnodar region, of 5.5 million people in the Krasnodar region, I'm happy to welcome you in Sochi. Our region, the Krasnodar region, is the synonym is Kuban, and Sochi is an integral part of our region. Has become the traditional platform for large international sports, cultural and business events. Every year, the Kuban receives millions of visitors. This year, we forecast 16 million tourists to welcome here in Kuban in Krasnodar region. The aim of such visits is different, leisure, business. And today, as always, we aim to keep to the main traditions of hospitality, and we hope that your stay in Kuban will be remembered not only as a useful business trip, but also as a very interesting, comfortable trip. We are honored to welcome the delegations to be participants of the 10th anniversary of the GPF for financial inclusion. The issues discussed on the forum platform, experience exchange, the discussion of issues of financial inclusion is very topical for our region, because our region is one of the leaders in Russia in terms of the level of banking infrastructure development. Right now, in terms of the number of acting banking institutions, the region is on the 2nd place after the Moscow macro region. And I would like to give you a figure that every year the economy of the region attracts around 1,800,000,000,000 resources. Also, I would like to say that the agenda of the forum is influenced by the global competence for the resources, and in this respect, for the region, it's important to understand the trends that are right now being developed in financial markets. And in this respect, the technology, the innovations that contribute to the easy access to financial services for all the types of population and for all the businesses, it's very important. When we started the forum agenda, we noticed that a lot of attention is paid to the strategic planning. We noted that right now more than 60 countries are developing or have already implemented national strategies for financial inclusion, including the Russian Federation. And I would like to mention that in our region we also attend to the principle of strategic planning. And this year, for example, we are approving the strategy of development of Krasnodar region up to 2030. And its implementation includes the high financial literacy of the population and availability of the developed banking sector. Also, I would like to say that financial literacy issues in the region are being systemically approached. For the 10 years, we launch our own programs and programs with the central bank and the ministers of the Russian Federation. It gives its own results. I can give you an example which illustrates it. In our region, we have 1,700,000 pensioners, and up to half of them receives pension onto the accounts of credit organizations. They actively use ATMs and all the online services provided by banks. Dear friends, of course, I would like to mention not only your stay here in Sochi, but also to say that Sochi is, of course, a pearl of Russia, of the Krasnodar region. It's one of the many pearls in the necklace of the Krasnodar region. Considering the very busy agenda of the forum, unfortunately, you won't be able to see and visit all the sightseeing and use all the leisure activities. So I welcome you to Sochi again. Take your families, your friends. Please come for leisure. I'm sure you will like it. Thank you very much.
Governor of the Krasnodar Region Administration. Ladies and gentlemen, please, another round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, the opening remarks, our first opening remarks this morning will be done by the Chair of the AFI Board and the Governor of the Bangladesh Bank. Please, a warm round of applause for Mr. Fazal Kabir.
Your Excellency, Mr. Maxim Akimov, the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister for Transport, Communication and Digital Economy, Government of Russian Federation. Your Excellency, Mr. Yevgeny Bushman, the Honorable Deputy Speaker of the Federation Council of the Russian Federation. Excellency, Mr. Ivor Galas, the Deputy Governor of the Krasnodar Region Administration. Ms. Olga, the First Deputy Governor of Bank of Russia. Governors from the AFI member countries, Deputy Governors, and all colleagues from the AFI network, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. Vibrayodhra. It's indeed a moment of a profound honor for me to deliver my opening remarks at the Global Policy Forum as we embark on the 10th version of the Global Policy Forum, and especially on the 10th anniversary of the Alliance for Financial Inclusion. AFI is indeed honored by the presence of such esteemed guests today at the opening of the Global Policy Forum. We are all privileged to be hosted in this magnificent city of Sochi, and the warm hospitality of the Bank of Russia. Our host has bestowed us with wonderful reception and has ensured a very comfortable stay to get effectively engaged in this two-day global event on financial inclusion. I'd also appreciate the AFI management unit for co-organizing this grand event, and has become a global reference forum for financial inclusion policymakers and regulators from international community in financial sector, in development and in technology, and also in the academia. Ladies and gentlemen, our decade-long journey was eventful, filled with exciting achievement, important learning, and significant progress in advancing global financial inclusion and specific gains at country level, putting significant impact in the lives of millions. We witnessed a reduction of the global unbanked adult population from the 2.5 billion mark when we started the journey to the current level of 1.7 billion of the adult population. About 85% of these global unbanked populace live in the AFI network, which makes financial inclusion our core initiative. We recognized very early that this task cannot be undertaken without collaboration, cooperation, and coordination among all member countries. We mobilized support from members and like-minded strategic partners who traveled with us by providing funds and also intellectual support. We still have this support, and we are profoundly grateful for that. On the broader scale, as a network, we have been able to galvanize a rich base of practical knowledge on financial inclusion. We have moved from challenges of access to basic financial services account, where we have gained significant mileage. However, we still face challenges on the usage and the demand side aspects of the dimension of financial inclusion. Therefore, our financial inclusion journey is still all out in earnest. The gains achieved do not make us complacent. Rather, they give us impetus to press on to address challenges and opportunities we see in the next decade and beyond. In brief, I wish to build upon the lessons from the first decade to reinvigorate our journey as we move ahead onto the next decade. Collaboration and cooperation have been instrumental in ensuring that we are effective in addressing the common goal of reducing the global unbanked population. AFI was established on the idea to create a global knowledge exchange platform with effective dialogue and engagement with developed economies and partners to address the financial inclusion challenges. We, as you are all well aware, have been effective in our peer learning and peer transformation initiatives. These have provided us with tangible gains in terms of country-level financial inclusion interventions that are evidenced by the level of financial inclusion in countries represented by AFI member institutions in this past decade. We will continue to apply this approach by scaling it up in terms of establishing stronger cooperation for the use of innovation and technology to accelerate financial inclusion. Global platform for raising financial inclusion issues and support that we have over the last decade has been able to raise the voice of emerging economies on challenges of financial inclusion through global policy forums and other regional platforms. We have, throughout the journey, made commitments and endorsed accords that have been instrumental in addressing these challenges. The current Global Policy Forum is going to reinforce our network commitment to using innovation and technology for formulating appropriate policies and regulations for financial inclusion. Key issues that we expect to address in this forum are how should regulations effectively keep abreast in addressing emerging risks in the use of contemporary innovations and technology? How should regulators respond without stifling innovation to such changing landscape? And more policy and regulatory discussions will also be deliberated over the next 2 days. I'm looking forward to key outcomes that will contribute to the global discourse in financial inclusion and help shaping our activities as a network in 2018. Just to come to the conclusion, I would like to recollect one of the great Russian literators and thinkers, Count Leo Tolstoy, of the War and Peace and Anna Karenina fame that we all know. He once mentioned about individual empowerment and cooperation. Talking about that, Count Leo Tolstoy mentioned that one candle can light another candle and go on to light 1,000 candles. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take this from the great Leo Tolstoy as a zeal to go forward in the AFI in our quest for bringing change in the millions of lives across the AFI network countries, and also ensure inclusive development for all these developing countries. So once again, I wish to thank the esteemed guests, the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister for Transport, Communication and Digital Economy of the Government of Russian Federation, for making time to visit in this and to encourage us to go ahead over the next decade or so. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fazle Kabir, the Governor of Bangladesh Bank and Chair of the AFI Board. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Dr. Alfred Hanig, the Executive Director, Alliance for Financial Inclusion, to deliver his opening remarks.
His Excellency Mr. Maxim Akimov, the Deputy Prime Minister for Transport, Communications and Digital Economy, Government of the Russian Federation. Mr. Fazle Kabir, Governor Bangladesh Bank, Chair of the AFI. Honorable Mr. Yevgeny Bushmin, Deputy Secretary of the Federation Council of the Russian Federation. Mrs. Olga Skorobogatova, First Deputy Governor, Bank of Russia. Mr. Igor Galas, Deputy Governor of the Krasnodar Region Administration. Governors, Deputy Governors, heads of institutions, dear members, dear partners, dear friends, welcome to the 10th AFI Global Policy Forum. Let me start with a sentence, which I put into perspective in a minute. The sentence is, how can you promote financial inclusion at a time when the world is suffering from too much inclusion? Does it tell you anything? Well, this sentence I heard a couple of years ago was asked bluntly by a representative from a multilateral institution going back to the creation of AFI, which was actually in the wake of the financial crisis. So the question I got is, how can you do what you're doing when too much inclusion is a problem? I found that a very interesting question, and I think the answer to the question is apparently in this room when we are now celebrating the 10th anniversary of this organization. Now, it is actually, and this is interesting, not without irony, that is precisely the financial crisis that has taught us that the developed world does not have all the answers to the challenges. And at the same time, the incredible innovations coming out of the developing world have shown that there are rich resources of financial knowledge and lessons waiting to be shared. And I do recall the annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank in 2008, when the former president of Indonesia, Mr. Bambang Susilo Yudhoyono, offered the developed countries support in managing the financial crisis, actually based on their experience from the crisis they were going through, especially in Southeast Asia and particularly in Indonesia in 97, 98. Now, that was the time, 2008, when AFI was created. And those of you who were in 2009 with us in Kenya at the first GPF, which was organized under the topic Bringing Smart Policies to Life, which is still AFI's tagline, we had 180 of us taking part and 38 member institutions and a handful of global stakeholders. Today at the Sochi GPF, we are proud to count almost 600 participants and 84 member institutions and a variety of stakeholders. And if I'm not mistaken, more than 90 countries are represented in this room. So indeed, the year 2008 marked a remarkable milestone and a change in the financial inclusion sphere, because financial inclusion began to move up distinctly in the reform agenda. You're very aware that it is now, as I said yesterday, part of any economic development thinking. It is part of the mainstream thinking. It has actually entered the mandate of most of our members. It is part of the financial stability pillar even. So it has really made its way. But I should also say that financial inclusion has been acknowledged as an enabler of the Sustainable Development Goals, and the G20 recognizes financial inclusion as a critical component of growth, poverty alleviation, and many other objectives. But also, standard-setting bodies have begun to incorporate financial inclusion into their mandate. So I think these are tremendous developments we have seen, and we also know that to date, nearly 70 countries have made formal financial inclusion commitments under the Maya Declaration. And since the beginning of AFI, and I think this is maybe an interesting information also for our Russian hosts, it is very important to note that we have seen 384 concrete policy changes that have been a result of the AFI work. And only in 2017 we saw 118 of these policy changes. This indeed reflects the increasing speed of peer learning and knowledge sharing and what it can actually lead to. And when we now talk about the actual impact of financial inclusion, we all know that financial inclusion is not linear. It is not easy. It is not easy to actually look at the impact because we have, of course, methodological issues. And financial inclusion impact can be shaped by many influences. But to gauge AFI's impact on members' policy-making agendas, we should consider the degree of influence as it is assessed by our members. And we know from our member needs assessment that our members of AFI, on average, over a couple of years, in fact, tell us that their regulatory reform work on financial inclusion, actually, they say that 60% is the attribution, which actually means that 60% AFI takes responsibility in the implementation of these reforms. And we have taken this number and combined it with a number from the Global Findex from the two exercises, 2011 to 2014 and 2014 to 2017. We all know, and the German has alluded to it, that we have seen a reduction by 1.2 billion over this time. And we also know, and the Chairman has also alluded to it, that we have 85% of the unbanked population living in the AFI member countries. Now, when you combine these three data sets, you can calculate that 634 million adults have been included as a result of AFI activities. So I think this is an interesting number, and of course, the researchers out there will now start to crunch their databases and check whether this is a correct statement, but I have at least given you the assumptions for this calculation. Now, take a moment and look at the AFI 10 book, which I forgot to bring here, but it is a book which very nicely summarizes the AFI progress, and it has been distributed at the awards night. Now, financial inclusion, we all know that is not a simple task, and that's actually my first point where I think we want to move forward and we need to do more. In our vision, we feel that to achieve and maintain sustainable financial inclusion, usage and quality turn out to be the unresolved issues. Because in an increasingly overcrowded financial inclusion space, we at AFI see actually the danger of too much optimism and preference for simple solutions which are understandably attractive in the shorter term. But our concern is that if usage and quality of financial inclusion are not seriously addressed, we risk another drop-off from financial access, which can once again lead to financial exclusion. This is also another lesson from the financial crisis in 2008. As a result of fast and easy access to financial services, over-indebtedness led to the deterioration of credit portfolios and ultimately to low-income families losing their economic base and falling into poverty, even in advanced economies. So we don't want to hear this sentence that I heard a couple of years ago again. So we want to move forward, and we explain that the so-called last mile is harder than the first stretch of the financial inclusion journey. And to sum up our thinking, AFI strives for sustainable and high-quality financial inclusion, but we are realistic that it takes time and considerable investment to achieve this goal. In other words, 10 years is not enough. Second, despite all success, you all know that the gender gap is very stubborn. And based again on the Findex, we see that we still have a gender gap of 9% globally. And this indicates that women's account ownership is growing roughly at a similar rate as men, so we see in absolute terms a growth, but not quick enough to narrow down the gap. And of course, there's some good news. And the good news is that the usage of digital and internet-based payments by women has trended upwards across all regions. And preliminary analysis also indicates that digital financial services have helped to accelerate the progress for financial inclusion in some countries, although women have benefited less compared to men. Now, under the auspices of the 10-hour action plan, which we launched in Fiji a couple of years ago, our alliance has also established governance structures to move forward on the financial inclusion gender gap. And we have already seen 28 Maya commitments towards these objectives. And we also recognize that even in our own institutions, we see an issue to drive gender diversity. And we're very happy to see actually that at the leadership level of the Central Bank of Russia, the gender diversity is apparently less of an issue. We think this is great, and of course we would also encourage others to follow on this path, including our own organization. Third, we want to recognize that financial services play a vital role in enabling the poor to cope with risks from climate change. And on one hand, we feel that financial inclusion in this sense can play an important role in fact, dealing with resilience issues, helping poor households who are actually suffering from these environmental risks. But we are also seeing that there is a space in AFI to move forward towards green financial inclusion in terms of green finance. So we are also seeing regulatory tasks that can actually be taken up to make financial inclusion also green. And I think this is something that is going to be picked up in Fiji very soon when we launch the work stream on financial inclusion and climate change. As you all know, we have adopted the Sharm el-Sheikh Accord in Egypt last year, and we feel this commitment by the membership is a vital commitment that in fact can move us towards greener, more sustainable financial sectors. Let me come to my fourth point, which leads us to the main outcome of this forum, which is the Sochi Accord on FinTech for financial inclusion. The way we save and borrow, the channels we use to pay for goods and services, and how we engage in money transfers between wallets and accounts domestically and across borders, are changing dramatically. And the disruptive innovations mentioned by the first Deputy Governor, like machine learning, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and so forth, these are revolutionizing the collection and processing of information, financial information. There's a strong appetite from AFI members to explore how technical innovations can be leveraged to enhance efficiency and risk management in their own regulatory and supervisory functions, such as through faster, more interoperable national payment system, blockchain setup, digital currency study groups, and research projects, and also RegTech solutions. However, the pressure today to understand all this is very much higher than 10 years ago when we had the first wave of technology-enabled services, mainly through mobile financial services. This is a different situation. It's more complex, it's faster, it's actually quite dramatic. And there are a few dramatic cases that I think we haven't even started to understand. And yesterday, the colleague from China, in fact, corrected my previous number that I once gave, and he told us that this company, which is in the room, in China is processing 234,000 transactions per second. So you actually can see that the human being is not able to handle this anymore properly. Now, the Sochi Accord on financial inclusion aims to assist us in making sure that fintech for financial inclusion is truly transformative and not just additive. The Accord will also aim to provide guidance on how to effectively mitigate obvious risks of technology, such as those coming from, for example, unfair lending practices. And here, First Deputy Governor, I wanted to echo what you are saying, that the network should now step up, take the challenge, and also provide additional regulatory guidance from our own experience. And I think this is something which we have also agreed upon yesterday at the annual general meeting. Now, with regards to resolving demand-side issues, some of our members are of the view that international activities are still stuck in the phase of awareness rising, and we have not seen the cutting-edge solutions to facilitate behavioral changes. Now, growing demand-side database will enable a better understanding of the consumer, and this is very important in markets where most consumers are unsophisticated, with low financial literacy and lack of experience with advanced technological solutions. To conclude, we believe that to reap the full benefits of fintech for financial inclusion, we need to be risk-aware without being risk-averse. So I hope that my previous statements have also suggested why Bank of Russia and AFI have chosen the theme, which is innovation, which is inclusion, which is impact for this forum. Now, coming towards the end of this 10-year statement, let me now take the opportunity to recognize the important contributions of AFI's partners who have worked with us over the last 10 years. Our host, Central Bank of Russia, has been with us for quite some time, but I think what you are doing here is another edition of the tremendous support we are giving, and we really would like to thank you for hosting us in this wonderful city of Sochi. Thank you so much. Let me talk about our long-standing partner, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the Omedia Network. Now, without the positive energy, really positive energy of the foundation and their drive to spark innovation in the financial inclusion space, the creation of AFI would not have been possible. And I must say that the very generous funding, which helped us to conceptualize ourselves as an organization, to grow and to stay on course without interference from outside, which could have been potentially caused by funding constraints. This was very important. And the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development bought into this model at a very early stage and also provided substantial funding as a smart partner in all this and like-minded. But Omedia joined later on and as a creative funder and intellectual partner has been with us for the second phase. We're also working with the Canadian IDRC, the International Development Research Center, especially in Latin America, and we have just heard that our Latin American partners and members really appreciate this cooperation. Now, our strategic knowledge and technical partners, the German International Cooperation, GIZ, the African Development Bank, and the Asian Development Bank. Let me emphasize that GIZ was the catalyst for AFI. It provided a flexible incubation environment which helped the AFI project to prove the concept before preparing for the independence. And I want to say that GIZ was not driven by institutional self-interest. This is important. But by the genuine will to create an initiative that can stand on its own. This, of course, included letting go of AFI at the right point in time. So thank you very much for that. I also wanted to thank our PPD partners, the GSMA, Leshego Holdings, MasterCard, Transfer2, and Visa. And I wanted to mention our newest funding partner, the German Ministry, BMU, which is Environment, Nature Conservation, and Nuclear Safety, which supports the implementation of the upcoming work stream on climate change and financial inclusion. We also work closely with IMF and World Bank. We are grateful for the cooperation. Mentioning World Bank, of course, I want to mention the work with the World Bank Group, which of course also includes CGAP. And I have to say, after looking around who has been with us for 10 years in a row at the GPF forums, there is a person in the room. It's Michael Tarazi. He's around, and he was with us all the time. Michael, thank you for that, and thanks to CGAP. Let me also thank the previous GPF hosts. Our MC has already gone through the long list. We are very grateful for their support. And it is important to note that there are also many other events that all of you have hosted. So thanks for your in-kind contributions. I do not want to end without thanking all previous AFI chairs for their leadership, insightfulness, and dedication to this organization. Previous Governor Njuguna Ndungu from Kenya, Governor Tetanko from the Philippines, Superintendente Skidlowski from Peru, Governor Ndulu from Tanzania, and Governor Goldfein from Brazil. Thank you also, Governor Kabir, for leading us. I believe that now it's time to thank our members who have been driving the evolution of this network with such passion and their own resources. I also think we can now move forward with our members and partners so actively engaged, and we are now forming a true global leadership alliance that can provide thought leadership and ensure effective implementation on financial inclusion around the world. At the same time, our alliance is also strong enough to preserve its unique cooperation model and overcome the visible threats of isolationism, which has become a worrisome phenomenon for those who believe that international exchange and mutual learning across borders and among equal partners is key to resolve global development challenges. AFI strives for better policies for financial inclusion, but it will also continue to strive for better collaboration across borders. With these remarks, kindly let me close. Thank you all and wish you a productive GPF. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alfred Hanig. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, it is now my humble duty to introduce our guest speaker. He has a PhD in economics. He has received the Order for Service to the Motherland, second class in 2005, and then Order of Honor in 2013. His academic rank is Associate Professor, and prior to his role as Deputy Speaker, he was a member of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation from the Nizhny Novgorod region. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker, the Honorable Evgeny Bushmin, Deputy Speaker of the Federation Council of the Russian Federation. Please make him welcome with a huge round of applause.
Уважаемые дамы и господа, участники форума, уважаемый представитель Совета директоров, AFI
esteemed guests, esteemed management of AFI, Executive Director, First Deputy Governor, and especially the hosts of the region where we are holding this forum, of the Krasnodar region. I welcome you on this forum, and I would like to say that on the 21st of August, the President of the Russian Federation gave me another order of the Alexander Nevsky, so now together with the mentioned regalia, I can add another one. I am very happy about it, and especially I'm happy that I was invited to this forum. In the Council of Federation, as a senator, I deal with the finance and economy. I supervise the committees on budget, tax, financial markets, and economic policy. So I deal directly with the financial services, and while I am the only representative of the National Financial Council of the Central Bank of the Russian Federation, it all allows me to say a few words on at our plenary. And to begin my presentation, I would like by saying that the arrival of financial services in every home is the imperative of time. Therefore, we need to ensure that every citizen, regardless of their level of well-being, can take advantage of the wide range of opportunities that financial organizations now provide. This year, the Parliament adopted a set of federal laws which allowed the financial ombudsman to introduce such an institute which allows to settle financial disputes before going to law between the citizens and financial institutions. This will reduce social tensions, ease the burden on the judicial system, and most importantly, will save the costs and time of consumers of financial services. Besides, as First Deputy Governor of the Bank of Russia said, Ms. Skorobogatova, we managed to introduce remote identification of clients into banking. We also managed to improve the procedure for information compilation in the Credit Bureau. In particular, a scoring system has been introduced, which will help citizens in the self-assessment of their creditworthiness. Simplification of obtaining information from Credit Bureau is also planned, including using unified identification and authentication system. Also, we managed to improve the position of individual borrowers by obliging lenders to inform the borrower about the debt and the balance of the credit limit on the loan provided using an electronic payment system, which will allow for an objective assessment of their financial condition and, as a consequence, reduce the debt burden of citizens.
We have also managed to toughen the criminal liability for the theft of funds using a counterfeit or stolen electronic means of payment by deceiving an employee of a credit or another organization. Legally, in terms of legislation, we have obliged to make it possible for paying for goods and services using banking cards for economic entities whose revenue by selling goods over a calendar year exceeds 600,000 USD or 40 million rubles a year. I believe that this trend will be worked upon later and will continue to lower this threshold. expanding the variety of financial products on offer and making them more affordable. To do this, the Bank of Russia has launched another project that's supposed to do this, the so-called financial marketplace. This is a single platform system that brings together all offers for financial service consumers that makes financial transaction more convenient, speedy, and effective. And in this manner, we are gradually introducing a fast payment system that would enable sending funds instantly from one bank client to another, using a phone number, email, using the accounts on messengers and social media, and to pay for goods purchased via e-commerce. We're also implementing the single national system for registering all individuals' transactions in the financial market. Let me emphasize that this was made possible by the mechanism for remote identification of financial service consumers that makes financial products way more accessible. Dear colleagues, a lot of attention is paid to digitalization of the economy and social services here in Russia. We have programs, and I'll be glad if our esteemed Deputy Prime Minister who handles this in Russia will tell us about this program in more detail. But I believe that as of now, the government's stance on digitalization shows us that our future is already defined, and we've chosen our path, and we should follow it. Now, a few words about our next projects. We're working on a number of legislation acts that would expand the scope of using financial technology in finance. We have submitted a draft law to the Parliament which introduces to the legal law new financial assets that are created using digital technologies. We plan to create a legal framework for ICOs, launching new cryptocurrencies for purchasing tokens, and etc. Now we're waiting for the second reading of the draft law, as there has been the first reading in the Parliament. The Parliament is also reviewing another draft law that aims to regulate the use of digital investment platforms. It essentially creates a legal framework for establishing a sort of a legal investment system that would be alternative to traditional bank and traditional stock markets. This could help finance the projects run by SMEs in Russia. We're also working on draft law that would expand the scope of use for electronic money, for digital money. It envisages increasing limits for transactions conducted using electronic means of payment and also allows for using banking cards for transactions, not only between individuals but also between legal entities. To conclude, I'd like to say that many digital financial services work at a cross-border level by design. Therefore, international cooperation is required for regulating such technologies effectively. I believe that international forums, including the AFI's Global Policy Forum, can and should become effective platforms for peer learning and elaborating optimal solutions. I'd like to know that the Russian legislators will continue their efforts to promote financial inclusion for households and small businesses. I wish you fruitful work together, have interesting professional discussions, and all the best. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we give the Honorable Deputy Speaker of the Federation Council of the Russian Federation another round of applause? Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my humble pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. He graduated from the Tsiolkovsky Kaluga State University. He has worked as a teacher and served in the Soviet Army. He held the chairmanship for the Kaluga Regional Securities Market Commission. His service to the Kaluga region included a deputy director, the Economy and Industry Department, the first deputy chair, the State Property Committee, the Honorable Minister for Economic Development, the first deputy mayor, and also the Honorable Deputy Governor of the region before being appointed as the Deputy Chief of the Government of the Russian Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Deputy Prime Minister of the Government of the Russian Federation, His Excellency Maxim Akimov.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates to the anniversary 10th anniversary GPF, I'm glad to welcome you here on behalf of the Russian government, to welcome here in Russia, in Sochi. After a very in-depth reports by my colleagues, I know the only thing the most important thing about my speech will be being concise, and thankfully most important things have already been touched upon by the previous speakers. But still, I'd allow myself a few, I believe, important remarks that will help us. So, over the last 4 centuries of the economic history, apart from expanding the gap between the so-called global north and so-called global south, which had been only expanding until recently, the access to services, including financial services, was a privilege for a minority. And I believe that today's forum is important not only because of being held in this beautiful city of Sochi, in this warm city. I believe it's also important that it's a great time to hold it. It's the time of opportunities when we can really change the situation for the good of billions of people worldwide whose children will be able to access inclusive development, to be involved in the global financial and economic and cultural exchanges. And this opportunity is provided by the digitalization. Right now, we're entering the era of global digital transformation based on computing capacity is becoming so much cheaper, and now people who hold mobile gadgets, people now hold mobile gadgets before they learn to read or write. Now, all of these interconnections, all of these ties, all of this new mobility now infiltrate even the most remote areas worldwide thanks to the new technology. Financial services become customized. They are now tailored to the needs of particular people, to their demands. Now they become cheaper because there are no intermediaries, no need for intermediaries anymore, and the work that used to be done by tens of thousands, by millions of people in lower level financial institutions are now done by algorithms, which is, on the one hand, that's a challenge for the labor market, but at the same time, it provides great capacities and great opportunities. And without any doubt, as I've said before, this interconnectedness, mobility, cross-border services, the rapid spread make it possible provide access to the most up-to-date digital services for citizens in every country, regardless of their or regardless of the GDP, or regardless of their economic development. And of course, just like any initiative, when it comes to implementing any initiative, well, you should probably start with yourself and governments and the authorities just need to be the leaders. They need to lead the digital transformation along with the business, along with the society. And I'd like to say a couple of words about our national program launched by the president's order, which sets the digital priorities under the digital economy program. I'd like to say a couple of words. So, first, the program is based on 6 very clear pillars that we need to implement, that are hard to implement. We'll have to concentrate a lot of efforts, but they will create a basis for not only providing financial services, but also to lead the whole digital transformation and to create them, to make them a basis for increasing the effectiveness of business and promoting the prosperity of the population. First, infrastructure. Without communication, there is no data, there is no access. And this year we're finalizing of creating connections for hundreds of medical institutions to broadband connection. Next year, we'll provide these connections to 45,000 schools and colleges, because without access to digital educational content, there is no modern education. We're the biggest country in the world in terms of territory, and therefore the issues of connection, of infrastructure and communications are a key challenge that we'll have to address using the most cutting-edge technologies and using all available resources, using new generation connections, using the Internet of Things, and using big data, using cloud technologies, and using Internet of Things in the sphere for developing the industry. Second, of course, we should create new regulations, new laws. We should provide people with a digital identity that they will fully manage in a trusted manner. To manage digital rights, should create a very clear data regime, privacy regime, and would help people manage their privacy. Because we believe that a person generates data, and therefore people should have their rights to their data. And in today's world, it's very hard to do this, but we need to strive for this. Third, the cybersecurity. We all know very well, as we work in for digital services, that no one, or almost no one, steals physical wallets, but still digital wallet is something. That's what the tens of thousands of criminals do every day. This is cross-border crime. We can't just treat it domestically, locally, and if a criminal steals our digital money, this person can be 1,000 kilometers away from us, from the place where we are. And here, the key aspect is not about technology, it's about the literacy of the people, about financial awareness, and whether the people can have at least some basic competency skills for behaving safely in the unprotected internet, to tell a phishing service from a real website, to understand how crypto security works.
The fourth direction is technology. I won't go into detail about this. It's clear that any state is striving either to get this technology or to develop and participate in the development of the technology, AI, and big data processing, new computation technology based on quantum technology. Fifth aspect are the state services for business and citizens. 5 years ago, 3.5 million people were registered on our global hub of the single state services portal. Right now there are more than 70 million users which do more than million transactions, payment including. This is one of the main payment services in the country, where people pay taxes, fines, do other kinds of financial transactions. And our task is to make these services smooth and straight through, where the person doesn't notice where the border between the business and the state is crossed, where it should be a single action in a matter of seconds, without the need to each time prove your identity. And the sixth aspects, which I would actually say first, but I put it last in order to emphasize the significance, it's the education. Education, not only mathematical, not only for programmers or for specialists of new digital spheres, digitalization of industry, algorithms, big data processing. First of all, it's the education for millions of people who should get some foundations of the cyber literacy, digital hygiene, foundation of the safe behavior in the internet, foundations of the privacy management in using devices. And I believe that the investment in people, in knowledge, is the base for development in all the 5 other areas of digital economy program. Of course, the digital era that has come is not only bringing the opportunities, and it's been mentioned here that this is the world that also incorporates the same amount of fastly growing number of risks of a completely new nature, but still with all the critical approach to this, I would like all of us to be safe, but yet not pessimists, but optimists. Digital dividends can be spread evenly. Digital goods can become affordable and accessible for all citizens of our countries. Digital services are what makes the world both more vulnerable, but at the same time more even, more inclusive and accessible. Whether it will be or not, it depends the same time on us and on how efficient we work on the platform of our forum. I believe that this will be the case. Once again, I welcome you on behalf of the Russian Federation government, and I wish you fruitful, successful work. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please can we give His Excellency Maxim Akimov another round of applause. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the final portion of our program this morning, and that is, of course, the ringing of the gong. This is, of course, the AFI tradition to symbolize the official opening of the forum. For this, I ask all our guests up on stage to please stand, but I especially invite His Excellency, Mr. Maxim Akimov, and of course, the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Russia, Ms. Olga, to please come forward to ring the gong 3 times. Thank you so much. Let's give them another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes the official opening ceremony, And in a moment, I'll invite our guests to step forward, of course, for a group photograph. And of course, I will invite the honorable ministers, honorable governors and deputy governors, and chairpersons and superintendents to move out to the thank you wall for the group photo. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our official opening ceremony. We're very grateful and humbled to be able to be hosted here. And we once again thank our hosts. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them another round of applause. While they're taking the group photo, ladies and gentlemen, I ask all our delegates to please remain in your seats, and I invite only the honorable ministers, honorable governors, deputy governors, chairpersons, and superintendents, please, if you can make your way out to my left or your right, out that exit to the thank you wall for the group photo. Our delegates, please remain seated at this time.